Hello, and welcome to this short series of informational videos related to the Hudson Highland Fjord Trail and the alternative routing analysis. My name is Michael Doherty, I'm the Landscape Architecture Studio Manager for SLR Consulting and Project Manager for the Alternative Routing Analysis. This is the second video in this series which will briefly address the analysis done within the defined reaches number 1 and 2 of the proposed Hudson Highland Fjord Trail. Please refer to the first video that addresses what is an alternative route analysis and why is it required as part of the state environmental review. As a brief refresher, the alternative analysis evaluates defined routes that were, for the most part, identified in earlier planning and outreach phases. The alternative routes are evaluated against the current defined main trail route, which connects key destinations between Cold Spring and Beacon. The overall 7.5 mile trail distance has been delineated into 4 trail reaches. For this video, we will focus on reach number 1, Cold Spring to Little Stony Point, and reach number 2, Little Stony Point to Breakneck Ridge. Over the remainder of the slides, we will briefly describe the routes within each reach and how they performed within the established alternatives routing analysis matrix, which categories are summarized in the first video of this series. Beginning with reach number 1, Cold Spring to Little Stony Point, we'll briefly look at the overall defined routes within this section. Each reach has a varying number of identified alternative routes. Within reach number 1, there are 6 alignments identified that were evaluated against the project's goals and objectives to connect the village of Cold Spring to Little Stony Point. The alignments include the current master plan main trail that is defined as the project action for the environmental impact statement. That means all other alignments are judged as potential alternatives to this route. This remains the case throughout all 4 reaches. The master plan route begins at Dockside Park and follows the shoreline on the west side of the Metro North Railroad tracks to reach Little Stony Point. The alignment has both opportunities and challenges. It provides for many of the desired experiences of the proposed trail facility, but does require water adjacent and in-water construction activities due to the narrow shoreline adjacent to the railroad tracks. Being the current defined route for the project, the main trail, not surprisingly, scores high overall with a 44. It should be noted that other routes do not have to meet or exceed the main trail rating. Scores are used as an overall summary of the feasibility of each defined route. A lower scoring route can still be evaluated through the environmental impact statement process as a prudent alternative. Alternative alignment number 1 shares a similar route as the defined main trail, however, is proposed to be located on the east side of the Metro North tracks, which eventually necessitates a bridge crossing over the tracks to reach Dockside Park. The approval of this bridge is expected to be difficult given Metro North's policy of limiting structures that restrict overhead clearances and the fact that Metro North has already approved a bridge crossing for the project at Breakneck Ridge. Sharing the main trail's challenge of construction along the narrow shoreline, coupled with the added complexity of spanning the railroad tracks, alignment number 1 scores just slightly below the main trail with a total of 36. Alternative alignment number 2 again shares some of the similarities with the main trail and alignment 1. However, the route bypasses Dockside Park by traveling from the Metro North station along the east side of the railroad tracks to reach Little Stony Point. The difficulty with this alignment stems from the need to traverse private property at Cold Spring Depot and the need for rock blasting adjacent to the railroad tracks and below residential housing to fit the desired trail minimum width and clearances. Due to the significant constraints of private property and rock blasting, this alignment scores fairly low at a total of 27 and is not deemed a feasible option in the alternative analysis report. Alternative alignment number 3 shares some of the similarities with the previous alignment, but differs at Mayor's Park, where the trail diverges from the rail corridor through the park to Fair Street and then on to Little Stony Point. Unfortunately, the similarities shared with alignment number 2 include the need to traverse private property at Cold Spring Depot and the rock blasting to fit the trail adjacent to the railroad. Due to the significant constraints of the private property and rock blasting, as well as being adjacent to vehicular traffic to reach Little Stony Point, This alignment scores at a total of 24 and is not deemed a feasible option in the alternative analysis report. Alternative alignment number 4 connects the Metro North rail station to Little Stony Point primarily via Main Street and Fair Street. The challenge facing this alignment is trying to traverse these busy corridors as a single multi-use trail facility and results in several key design criteria not being able to be achieved, including trail width, reduction of vehicular conflicts, and impact to community due to the increased pedestrian and bike traffic. Due to these challenges and the fact that this alignment is unlikely to accommodate all trail users within one facility, alignment number 4 scores lower with a total of 27. Alternative number 5 utilizes Main Street and Route 9D to connect the train station to Little Stony Point. Sharing some of the same challenges as the previous alignment, alignment number 5 would likely require separation of pedestrian and bicycle users to reduce impacts to Main Street. And while a single facility is feasible adjacent to Route 9D, there would be impacts to parking, private property, and sections of the trail that would not meet project goals for accessible slopes due to the trail paralleling steep existing grades along Route 9D. Due to these challenges and the likelihood of significant increased traffic in the heart of Cold Spring, alignment number 5 scores low with a total of 24. Moving on to reach number 2, we will briefly look at the options for connecting Little Stony Point to Breakneck Ridge trailhead. 3 alignments, including the defined main trail, were evaluated within reach number 2. The main trail route follows the shoreline along the west side of the railroad tracks and provides a continuous path from Little Stony Point to Breakneck Ridge. The main trail is advantageous due to its separation from traffic, proximity to the water, scenic views, and limited property impacts. While the route requires extensive coordination with Metro North Rail and would be challenging to construct, overall the route scores high at a total of 45 as it best fits the vision and performance criteria established. Alternative alignment number 6 connects Little Stony Point to Breakneck Ridge via a side path trail along the east side of Route 9D. Prior to the Breakneck Tunnel, the route would need to transition to an elevated structure that would continue to rise and grade to traverse above the tunnel and along the rock face of the ridge. The alignment has several significant challenges related to constructability, physical and visual impacts, user experience, and private property impacts. Due to these challenges, alignment 6 scores low, particularly due to the limited area along Route 9D to accommodate the trail facility, as well as the special significant structures that would be needed for the alignment to traverse up and over Route 9D and the railroad tracks. The visual and physical impacts to traverse across Breakneck Ridge also contribute to the low total score of 20. Alternative alignment number 7 connects Little Stony Point to Breakneck Ridge along the west side of Route 9D, within the strip of land between the road and the railroad tracks, before diverging from Route 9D and continuing along the east side of the railroad tracks, eventually transitioning to an elevated structure to span the tracks and connect to Reach 3 at Breakneck. This alignment shares some similarities to alignment 6, including traversing limited space for the trail facility adjacent to Route 9D and the tracks, as well as the visual impacts of the elevated structures needed to cross from the east to the west side of the tracks to reach Breakneck Ridge. Due to these challenges associated with user comfort, constructability, impacts to existing state and Metro North infrastructure, and visual impacts to Breakneck Ridge, this alignment also scores at a total of 20. While the defined main trail alignment is expected to score high in the rating matrix, it was found that none of the evaluated alternatives within reach number 1 and 2 presented a clear and prudent alternative route that resulted in less impact to the environmental, social, and economic considerations of the project. This is a very high level overview of the alignments and their ratings. Please review the detailed report for in-depth narratives and graphics. Please also view the final video in this series that will outline the final 2 reaches of the proposed trail. Thank you for taking the time to view this video.